Envision a crowded courtroom, populated not by lawyers and jurors, but by inquisitive gazes, unspoken expectations, a silent demand for justification. Every step, every word, every absence of yours is placed under a relentless microscope. Society, in its infinite need to categorize and explain, thrusts us onto a stage where we are perpetual performers, forever owing an explanation, eternally indebted to the understanding of others. We feel the crushing weight of this pressure, the exhaustion of attempting to articulate the inarticulable, to imbue decisions that are, at their core, simply ours, with meaning. It is a vicious cycle, an invisible chain binding us to the necessity of external validation, preventing us from taking the next step, from breathing the air of our own autonomy. We inhabit a world that insists every choice must be defended, every silence filled with excuses, every departure interpreted as a flaw, a failing to be rectified. This incessant demand for accountability drains us, dilutes us, estranges us from the essence of who we are and what we require to simply exist in peace. What if, instead of succumbing to that pressure, we discovered an unexpected strength precisely in what is demanded of us? Silence. What if our greatest skill, our most effective superpower, were simply the act of withdrawing, of ceasing to offer explanations, of simply walking away in peace? This is not about confrontation, a cry of rebellion, or a display of anger. On the contrary, it is an act of preservation, a strategic move toward one's own sanity. It is recognizing that the energy we expend trying to convince those who do not wish to understand or who cannot truly see us is precious energy that could be redirected toward our own growth, toward our own healing. This is the central proposal of the shock of freedom. You owe nothing to anyone. It is an invitation to explore stillness as a refuge, the absence of a response as a powerful affirmation of our individual sovereignty. This is not an easy path. It demands a profound re-education of our own mindset, a deconstruction of the ingrained beliefs that we owe constant deference to public opinion or third-party validation. The journey we propose is an immersion into the philosophy of ataraxia, the equanimity the Stoics sought amidst chaos, the serenity that arises from acceptance and detachment. We will witness the metamorphosis of energy, the transition from waste to reorientation, from depletion to empowerment. We will see how the choice not to justify oneself, not to defend oneself unnecessarily, is not a sign of weakness, but rather the ultimate demonstration of unshakable inner strength. It is the capacity to recognize the limits of our control over others' perceptions and, rather than battling this reality, to embrace it and use that acceptance as a springboard for our own liberation. Our exploration will lead us to uncover the hidden beauty in strategic withdrawal. We will observe individuals who, rather than engaging in fruitless debates or attempting to placate baseless criticisms, simply step away. There is no resentment in their actions, only a profound calm, a clarity of purpose that renders words superfluous. This image, that of someone withdrawing with dignity and peace, is the core of the transformation we seek. It is the personification of the power of silence, the intrinsic strength residing in the capacity to detach from the need to please or be understood by everyone. It is liberation from the trap of continuous explanation, making way for a new way of being, one where our inner peace is the primary compass, not external approval. Throughout this narrative, we will delve into real-life cases and testimonials that echo this fundamental need to break free from the shackles of incessant justification. We will investigate the patterns that lead us to repeatedly fall into this social trap and how we can begin to identify these moments to make a different choice. The perspective we advocate is radically simple, yet profoundly transformative. You owe nothing to anyone. This maxim is not an invitation to irresponsibility or isolation, but rather to the recognition of your fundamental autonomy. It is the understanding that your life, your choices, and your well-being are primarily your responsibility, and that the energy expended in trying to manage others' expectations is a theft from your own existence. This is the invitation to a silent revolution, a revolution that begins within, with the courage to embrace quietude and the strength to walk away when necessary. The aim is to reach a point where serenity is not a distant aspiration, but a tangible reality, achieved through the wisdom of knowing when and how to extricate oneself. The ultimate landscape we shall paint is one of tranquility, a domain where the clamor of external demands dissipates, and where the clarity of your own inner voice can finally be heard. It is a testament to the profound transformation that unfolds when we choose peace, when we choose freedom, and when we choose, above all, to owe nothing to anyone. Delving deeper into the power of detachment, it is essential to explore how this philosophy manifests in practical and at times painful contexts of everyday life. Consider, for instance, dysfunctional family dynamics. In many cases, the need to maintain peace, or the fear of conflict, leads us to tolerate behaviors that erode our mental well-being. The shock of freedom here translates into the conscious decision to establish insurmountable boundaries, even if it means physical or emotional distance. This is not about abandoning those we love, but about safeguarding our own integrity. Consider the situation of an individual who repeatedly finds themselves in conversations with a relative who minimizes their achievements or questions their life choices. The temptation is to react, to defend oneself, to explain the obvious yet again. However, applying the principle of "you owe no one an explanation" allows us instead to calmly end the conversation, perhaps with a simple "I'd rather not discuss this right now," and withdraw from the room. This action, while it may generate initial discomfort, prevents the repetition of the devaluation cycle and preserves the individual's psychic energy. Furthermore, this approach offers a fresh perspective on professional relationships. In the workplace, it's common to feel pressured into accepting additional tasks, even when already overwhelmed, out of fear of being perceived as uncooperative or uncommitted. The desire to please superiors or colleagues can lead us to a state of chronic exhaustion. In this context, the shock of freedom manifests as the ability to politely yet firmly decline new responsibilities when one's capacity limit has been reached. Instead of offering a lengthy justification about the current workload, a direct and respectful response like, "I appreciate the opportunity, but at this time, I don't have the capacity to take on this new task without compromising the quality of my current work," can be surprisingly effective. This assertive refusal is not a sign of uncooperativeness, but rather of self-awareness and professional accountability, ensuring that the work produced is of excellent caliber. Furthermore, it is crucial to examine how this philosophy applies to the social sphere and friendships. We often feel compelled to maintain contact with individuals who no longer add value to our lives, perhaps out of a sense of social obligation or a fear of causing offense. Deliberate silence, a gradual reduction in contact without the need for a formal announcement of severance, can be an elegant and less traumatic way to readjust these connections. Consider a friend who constantly shares negative gossip or incessant complaints, draining your positive energy. Instead of confronting them or attempting to alter their perspective, applying the shock of freedom might involve responding to messages less frequently or declining invitations more often, allowing natural distance to redefine the relationship's dynamic. This withdrawal is not cruelty. It is an act of self-compassion, acknowledging that not all connections are meant to last forever or be maintained at all costs. In contrast, it is vital to distinguish this practice from chronic avoidance behavior or an inability to cope with difficulties. The shock of freedom does not encourage fleeing from all problems, but rather the strategic choice of where to invest our limited energy. It is about discerning which battles are worth fighting and which situations are more productively resolved through withdrawal and redirection of focus. Wisdom lies in recognizing that, in many cases, victory is not in convincing others or forcing understanding, but in protecting one's inner space and mental peace. This capacity for discernment is a learned skill, a muscle that strengthens with conscious practice, enabling us to navigate life with greater ease and purpose, unburdened by the constant need for unnecessary explanations. Reflecting on this journey thus far, we begin to perceive how the threads we've explored intricately interweave, fashioning a tapestry of understanding that gestures toward a more profound truth regarding our own agency. The primal exigency for self-affirmation, which so often compels us to justify every action, every omission, yields to a more nuanced apprehension of the strength residing in our capacity to simply exist, unburdened by the perpetual need for external validation. This transition is akin to the receding tide, revealing the bedrock's resilience, previously submerged, impervious to the ceaseless onslaught of scrutiny. The energy once dissipated in endeavors to shape others' perceptions begins to coalesce, to refine itself, much like light passing through a prism, unfolding into a spectrum of previously concealed possibilities. As we observe the diverse manifestations of this dynamic, from historical echoes to contemporary expressions of an intrinsic desire for autonomy, an emergent pattern becomes apparent. This is not an invitation to indifference or isolation, but rather a refinement of our capacity for discernment. It is akin to adjusting the focus of a lens, clearly distinguishing that which truly nourishes our being from that which, ultimately, drains us. This newfound clarity allows us to navigate the complexities of human interactions with a fresh wisdom, a serenity that is not the absence of challenges, but rather the ability to face them from a place of unshakable inner strength. The exhaustion that once consumed us, a consequence of the constant need to explain, gives way to a renewed vitality, directed towards what truly matters. At this juncture of convergence, we begin to glimpse the horizon of a more authentic freedom. Liberation from the burden of incessant explanation is not an act of rebellion against the social order, but rather an intimate redefinition of our own sovereignty. It is as if, by ceasing to offer answers that do not resonate with our inner truth, we open a portal to a space where our choices are inherently valid, irrespective of external approval. This reorientation of energy, this rediscovery of strength in stillness, prepares us for the final stage of reflection, where the implications of this journey solidify into a clear vision of the path forward. The landscape that unfolds is one of hard-won serenity, a silent testament to the transformative power of simply owing nothing to anyone. The journey we have undertaken has brought us to a point of crystalline clarity, where the societal demand for constant justifications reveals itself not as an inescapable norm, but as a construct that we can, with wisdom and courage, dismantle. Silence, once perceived as a void to be filled with explanations, now emerges as a sanctuary, a space of power where our authenticity can flourish unhindered by the interference of external expectations. The strength we seek lies not in incessant argumentation, but in the serenity of one who understands that their own truth needs no external validation to exist. It is the Stoic ataraxia, not as a distant ideal, but as a daily practice, a muscle strengthened each time we choose to preserve our energy rather than squander it on fruitless debates. The true revolution, the kind with the power to reconfigure our lived experience, commences within the innermost core of each decision, to disengage from draining dynamics. This is not an act of selfish abandonment, but rather one of profound self-compassion and a strategic redirection of our most precious resources, our time, our energy, and our inner peace. By gracefully withdrawing from situations that consume us without offering genuine growth or recognition, we are, in essence, honoring our own intrinsic worth. We are asserting that our choices are sovereign, that our presence is a gift not to be indiscriminately dispensed to those who neither appreciate nor comprehend its value. This liberation from the vicious cycle of perpetual justification paves the way for a more intentional and meaningful existence. We then envision a horizon where the necessity of defending ourselves or proving our worth at every turn fades away, It is not the absence of challenges that defines this new reality, but rather our capacity to confront them from a place of internal anchoring, where tranquility prevails over turbulence. The energy previously expended in attempting to shape external perceptions now turns inward, nurturing our growth, our passions, and our most authentic connections. This reorientation is the very core of the freedom shock. You owe no one anything. It is the realization that the greatest demonstration of strength lies in our ability to choose when to speak and, equally importantly, when to remain silent, allowing our actions and our presence to speak for themselves. Genuine practice begins now, in the serene acceptance that our peace and well-being are not contingent upon anyone else's approval.